So far, we've been running all of the pipelines locally. We have MLflow running locally. We have the server that's hosting the model running locally. And that's awesome because while you're developing, what you want is to have everything local so it's fast and you don't have to worry about servers and whatnot. But now it's time that we get a little bit more serious and start preparing the deployment of the models of MLflow and the running of the pipelines in a cloud environment. And we're going to do most of it using SageMaker and AWS, just because AWS is very common out there. A lot of people use it by default. I'm also going to show you how to deploy a model to Azure. But in this video here, I'm going to focus on a couple things. So number one is preparing your AWS account. So later on, we can actually do the deployment and the running of the pipelines. And number two, we're going to be running MLflow in the cloud, in a server in the cloud. And the reason we want to do that is obviously while we're running these pipelines at scale, they need to have access to an MLflow server. So we cannot have that server running in our local environment. We need to have that server on the internet somewhere accessible so all of those pipelines can contribute to that MLflow server. So that's what we're going to be doing in this lesson here. So you're going to start by the way, go to the README file. You're going to find the production pipelines in Amazon Web Services section. And you need to start by creating a new AWS account. Again, parenthesis, if you don't care about AWS, you don't have to do this. But if you want to see all of this working, you need to create a new AWS account. It can be a blank account. You can use an existing account. Whatever that is there is a link there that's going to take you there. Not hard to do. You can do that on your own. I already have my account that I'm going to be using. This is my account here. So I'm going to do everything else on top of this account. After you create your account, you're going to have to navigate to the CloudFormation service. Okay, so we are going to navigate to the CloudFormation service. Come here and type CloudFormation, and here is the service, and you're going to go to that service. Now, you're not going to see, if your account is brand new, you're not going to see anything here. These are other CloudFormation templates that I've run before, but you should see these empty. What are we doing here? Well, I have a CloudFormation file that it's here in the folder. It's inside CloudFormation. You're going to see it's called the ML School CFN.YAML file. This file we are going to run in AWS. A CloudFormation file, let me close the terminal here. A CloudFormation file defines or declares the infrastructure that I need to run. So in this particular case, this ML School CloudFormation is creating users. It's basically creating one user. Like if we go here, it's creating one user. It's creating setting credentials for that user so we can actually get an access key and an access secret key. It's creating one role, and it's adding specific policies to that role. So in other words, it's giving that role permissions to do everything that we want to do in AWS, okay? Without this, you won't have permissions to create services and access S3 and do all of that mambo jumbo that we're going to be doing from now on. So just so you don't have to do all of this manually, I created this CloudFormation file. Now we're going to appoint SageMaker to it, or not SageMaker, I'm sorry, point AWS to it. Tell AWS to run this file, and AWS will do all of this, okay? So if you're running on Project ITX, just right-click on the file and download it to your computer. That's what I'm going to do. This downloaded the file locally to my computer, so I can actually upload it here in the CloudFormation page in AWS. So I'm going to come to Create Stack with new resources, and I'm going to do the upload template file. I'm going to choose that file, look it up. It's supposed to be somewhere in downloads. Here it is. So this is the file. I'm going to click next. I'm going to provide a stack name, and I want you to type ML School there. And by the way, if you follow the instructions, you're going to know exactly what to do. As you can see here, upload the CloudFormation file, click next, specify a name for the stack and user account, and follow the prompts to create the stack. After a few minutes, the stack status will change to create complete. Okay, so I'm gonna call it ML School, and the username, I'm gonna type my name. That's the username that's gonna be created for me. When I click next, I don't have to do anything on this page. I do have to check this box because this CloudFormation file creates a user and a role. And anytime you do that, you're going to have to acknowledge that this is going to be adding users. Okay, so I'm going to click next. And now I can just click submit. And this is going to take about a minute. So you're going to have to wait a minute for AWS to deploy all of the resources specified in that CloudFormation stack, okay? All right, let's wait for it. There should be a refresh button here. There we go. So now, well, no, this create complete is the bucket. The stack, which is here on my left, is still create in progress. So let's keep refreshing this. Okay. You can also go to this page here, stacks page, and refresh here. Man, I want things to happen immediately. I don't want to wait for things. I just want them just to work. Now, in all seriousness, this stack is supposed to be very fast. Yeah, it's done already. So it create complete. So that means that right now, there is a user in AWS that we can use to run all of our pipelines, okay? So if you click on this tag and you go to the Outputs tab, this Outputs tab is going to contain the information that we're gonna need to use for the next few steps, okay? So you can see here what the access key ID is. This is the ID of the key. By the way, keep this secret. I'm recording my screen. You're seeing this here. Obviously, when I finish recording this video, I'm just gonna delete this so nobody gets access to my access key and my secret, which you will also see. But point being, keep all of this hidden. The bucket that was created, that is where we're gonna be saving stuff, this is the name of the bucket in S3. The region where all of this is running is US East 1. The role name is this one here, and the name of the user is Santiago. Now let's go to the next step here. So it says we need to modify the .environment file in the root directory of our repo to add AWS username, AWS role, AWS region, and bucket. Okay, those environment variables are going to come, the values for those are going to come from the outputs folder. Okay, before running the command below, replace the values within square brackets using the outputs from the CloudFormation stack. Okay, so this is the command that we have to run. So let's copy this. Let's go here. Let's do new text file. Let's paste this. Oh, actually, I don't know why here the right-click copy does not work. That's okay. So let's paste it here. So the username was Santiago. The role, I don't know that one. The region, US East 1. The bucket name, let's copy that information from here. So this is the bucket name. And now we are missing one more, which is the role. This is the role that we need to copy. Okay. Awesome. So after doing this, I can run this command. Now notice that this command is going to do a couple of things. So number one, it's going to add this information to the .env file, which we already have one here. Let's just make sure that is true. So if I do list.env, yeah, we already have one environment file there. I can even list what's inside that file. And it's the Keras backend, the endpoint name, and the ML MLflow tracking URI. We added all of that while we configured this. Okay, so we're going to be adding that information to the environment file. And right after doing that, we are going to be adding all of these specific variables to our environment. That's what the export is for. Okay, so let's copy this. Let's paste it. And now actually it did not work. So what happened here? Export T pro. Oh, I know exactly what happened. Or maybe I don't. Let me see what just happened. Why it didn't work? It's probably because no, this should have worked. Did I miss anything here? Export T. Export equals not a valid identifier. Okay, so let's check. Let's see why this didn't work. Okay, so all of this is fine. Okay, you know what? I don't know if this was this shouldn't have been the case now. So for some reason, if I do cat.env and I do this is what I get. Oh, you know what? I think I see why this didn't work. Cat.env. Yeah, I know what happened. So the problem with the export command here, and I'm sorry I took you through this debugging session, is I'm gonna have to fix that. But the problem is with these spaces that I have for these properties. You see these properties here? Those spaces are not gonna do it. So I'm gonna have to fix those spaces so I can actually rerun and now the command should work perfectly fine. All right, so how do I know the command run? Well, you can type environment and that will display all of your environment variables. If you want to be more specific, you can type environment pipe loop grep, which is gonna search for a specific string. Let's just look for AWS username, and that should give me AWS username equals Santiago. All right, so keep that in mind. Sorry, I had to take you through this. I'm gonna fix in the documentation the spaces around the equal sign. So actually this command works. But yeah, that should do what we needed to do for this. Let's go back here. We already have that done. Now it's time to install the AWS CLI. I already have it installed here. If you're using this Project IDX, you should already have that installed because I'm installing it for you. Like as you can see, one of the packages that I'm installing in Project IDX is the AWS CLI. If you're running this locally, you might want to just go to that link and do that installation. After that, I'm going to configure my profile. So to configure my profile, this is the command, okay? So it's AWS configure profile AWS username, all right? So now this is gonna be getting Santiago here because that's the environment variable that we created. So I'm gonna go here, type that, execute, and now I'm gonna be asked for the specific access key, secret access key, etc. All right, so let me go here and grab my access key. Okay, awesome. I'm gonna paste it here. Now it's asking me for the secret access key. Now, look at this. And there is a note here that says the configuration tool will ask for the access key ID, secret access key, and region. You can get the access key ID and region from the CloudFormation Stack output stub. Yes. To get the secret access key, you have to go to the secrets manager in your AWS console and retrieve the secret value under the credentials/ML school. All right, so we need to go to the secrets manager. So let's go there. And there must be here one entry that's called credentials/ML school. So click on that one. and there is a secret value right here. So the secret access key I'm storing in the secrets manager, so it doesn't show up anywhere because you really want to keep that hidden. So I'm gonna grab that secret value, and that will give me the full configuration. Now, I'm not gonna show you how I'm doing that, just in case I forget to delete this. But when you click on the button, it's just gonna reveal your secret key. You're gonna grab it, you're gonna go to your console, you're gonna paste that, and then it's gonna ask you for the region name, which you're gonna type your region, and the region comes from the outputs. So you're gonna do that, and then it's gonna ask you for the format, and I'm gonna keep it none. That by default is just gonna do JSON, and that is it. I'm gonna get you back to my computer, and now you should have, it's configured here. One more thing that you need to do before you're done. That configured my profile. Now we need to configure, create this file here in the AWS config. So I want you to run this command right here, which is gonna go to the AWS/config and add the role, the username, and the region here, okay? Notice that this profile is called ML School. That's the profile that we're gonna be using by default in AWS. So I'm gonna grab this command, I'm gonna type this command here. That should do everything that we need. Starting right now at this point, you should be able to take advantage of the roles permissions at the command line by using the -- profile option, okay? So if I do AWS S3 list, this should list all of the buckets that I have in AWS. Now, if I don't have permissions, that command will not work. But if I type profile ML School, I'm telling AWS, my CLI, to use the credentials under that profile, and that should work. So if I do that, as you can see, I get back all of the S3 buckets that I have in my account. That is exactly what you want to see. And just because you don't want to be specifying -- profile all of the time, you can just come here and export that AWS profile environment variable. So if you export these, now every single time you try to run a command, it's gonna come from, you're gonna get the ML School profile. So now I can run the same AWS S3 list command without specifying the profile, and that should also work. Awesome. So if you get to this point, you're good. You have your account configured. You have access now to AWS. Okay, so this is showing you that you can type the AWS S3, and now it's time to run an MLflow server in AWS. Now, how are we gonna do that? By the way, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna open again my console. Let's just go here. I'm gonna open the console. I had the console closed, and I'm actually gonna go to the home page of that console. All right, so I want to run an MLflow server. Now, to run an MLflow server, I created everything that you need to run also in a CloudFormation template. Now, let's take a look at this CloudFormation template really quick. So number one, I'm creating an EC2 key pair. This key pair, it's important because this is what's gonna get us access to that server in the cloud. So I'm gonna be opening a terminal window and using this EC2 key pair to connect to that server using SSH, okay? So then I'm creating a security group that will allow inbound traffic on port 5000. Remember, MLflow runs on port 5000. So I'm gonna be just connecting there just to run it on that. Allowing traffic that comes in, inbound traffic to that port. What else am I creating? I'm creating a remote EC2 instance. This is a computer in the cloud. By the way, parentheses, big note, keep this in mind. Actually, just gonna go to the big camera here because it's very, very important. This is going to charge you money. Here you're using a server in the cloud. Now, the good news is that I'm going to be using a T2 micro instance. And you have, I think it's like 400 or 700 hours for free. So you're not going to get charged when you try this out. But if you forget this server, you will get charged money. If you go over, let me just check in the README file. The README file is going to tell us how 750 hours of free usage, okay? So the T2 Micro, which is a tiny computer, gives you 750 hours for free, okay? That's quite a bit. But if you forget and you let it run and you never clean that up, it's going to charge you money. So please add a reminder to your calendar, add a note, write it on your wall. Don't forget, because some students, then they come back a month later asking me why I was charged $30. Well, you just forgot. You should not forget. There is a section in the README file that is going to show you, I don't know, the README file doesn't have the outline here, but there is a section that is within the AWS that's called Cleanup, that is going to tell you what you have to do just to clean up all of the resources. Or you can just go and delete the CloudFormation that you're about to create when you're done with it, okay? All right, so going back to the CloudFormation, this is that instance. This instance here is going to be a T2 Micros, very small instance. And I'm going to be installing Ubuntu on that instance. And here you get everything that's going to be happening inside that instance. I'm installing Python, and I'm installing MLflow. So all of the commands that I'm running, you can see them here. Going down, that's it. Those are the resources that I'm going to install. And there are going to be a few key pairs that we're going to have to use. So now that you have access in the CLI to AWS, that's great, because now it's easier to just run these tags locally from the command line, which is awesome. So this is the command that you are going to run in order to execute or run that stack, okay, in your AWS account. I'm going to paste that here. I'm going to run it. And this just created this stack ID. And if we go to our console and CloudFormation, you will see here MLflow is creating progress. Again, this is going to take about a couple of minutes to finish. We have to wait for that particular instance to run and finish initializing in order for us to go forward here, okay? Now, you can also, if you don't want to do it like this from the command line, which I think is way faster, obviously, you can do the same thing that I did before for the ML School CloudFormation, which is right-click, download this file. This is going to download the CloudFormation file to your computer, and then you go through the wizard in the CloudFormation page in AWS, click next, select the file, next, until you're done, okay? That's what you have to do. All right, so this says you can open the CloudFormation service in your AWS console to check the status of the stack. It will take a few minutes for the status to change from creating progress to create complete. Once it finishes, run the following command to download the private key associated with the EC2 instance and save it as mlschool.pempem in your local directory. So this command that I created here will automatically download that key from AWS. That key, we are creating it as part of the CloudFormation stack. That is a public key, a private key, a public key. I think this is a private key. I don't know a lot about security. I think this is the private key that we need to keep secret in our site. So that is what we are. Yeah, this is the private key. From whatever location we are going to access the server, we need to have that key. Now, I'm not going to be accessing the server from within Project IDX. So I'm going to go to a terminal window and access it there. I'm going to go to a terminal window here. I know I'm not showing my screen. I wanted to just remove some stuff from my screen. I had all of my keys on my screen there. Not cool. So from here, I'm going to be downloading that key. Let me just make sure that does not exist. You know what? It was right there. So I'm just removing it there so it doesn't exist. That's the old one. I'm going to be creating a new one right now. Let's check now that the MLflow is now create complete. So that's good. We can, after that finishes, you can check the EC2 instances. So if you type EC2, you can go there. And within EC2, go to instances. And here, there we go. Here you have one instance that's running, is currently initializing. That's going to take a few minutes. And it's a T2 micro instance, okay? This is the one that we just created. This is the instance that you have to delete, okay? So when you're done with this, you can just go and delete the whole CloudFormation stack, and that will get rid of this instance as well, okay? Very important. I know I don't want to repeat myself, but it's better that I do. All right, so CloudFormation finished. So let's run this command, which is going to automatically download the content of my private key and save it. And again, I'm running that on my terminal window on my computer, not in Project IDX, but on my computer, okay? So I'm gonna do the, oops, did not copy what I wanted to copy. So let's just come here, copy that. This is the command. I'm gonna run it. Let's see if it works. It says that I don't have a valid token ID. Of course, I do not have here locally on my computer, I do not have the proper credentials because I didn't configure the proper credentials to do this. So I'm going to have to get that done. I'm going to have to configure my AWS credentials if I really want to get this done on my local computer. I'm going to try. I don't know if Project IDX is going to allow me to connect remotely. It might. I'm going to try it first. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to configure AWS on my local computer, and I can do that. So let's try first to do it here. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe this works. So let me grab all of this. Let me rerun the command. Okay, so now we have the mlschool.pem file. As you can see, it is right here. Again, that's the private key. Now we need to change the permissions of this private key. So this is the command that you want to run. Okay, now that we changed the permissions, at this point, you can open the EC2 service in your AWS console and go to the instances page to find the new instance you'll be using to run the MLflow server. Wait for the instance to finish initializing. Again, the instance seems to be ready, but we need to wait for that status check to do this. Okay, I just refreshed my screen. Looks like the instance is good to go. So when that happens, now we can connect to it using this SSH command. So I'm going to try to connect from within Project IDX. Let's see if Project IDX gets me do that, gets that inbound or outbound connection go through. So I'm going to grab it, this command, paste it here, and let's give it a try. It does not, because it says that it doesn't have OpenSSH installed. Maybe we can just install OpenSSH and that's going to work. I don't know. Let's see if this allows me to do it. Yeah, it says, are you sure you want to continue connecting? Yes, I want to continue connecting. Okay, there we go. Here we are inside Ubuntu. That is pretty sweet. That is pretty awesome. I need to remember to come here. I'm actually going to do it here and add open SSH to this package here. I don't like to put it there. Why would I put it there? I'm going to put it. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to put it there. So next time I rebuild my environment, OpenSSH is going to be ready here. You probably can tell that I've never run this within Project IDX. I'm just discovering this. Okay, great. So now this is within Ubuntu, which is awesome. So what's next? I already did that. So the EC2 instance comes prepared with everything you need to run the MLflow server. From the terminal connected to the remote instance, run the following command to start the server, binding it to the public IP address of the instance. So I'm going to run this command from within this Ubuntu server. Let's see if that works. That seems to be working. So that means that now we have an MLflow server running in the cloud. It's pretty cool, pretty sweet. All right, so I'm going to rename this. So this is going to be the SSH remote MLflow server. Okay. Let's go to a different bash command that we can actually use. All right, what else do I have to do? Once the server starts running, open a browser in your computer and navigate to the instance public IP address on port 5000 to make sure MLflow is running correctly. All right, so that makes sense. How do we get that public IP? Well, we just run this and that will give us our public IP. By the way, I changed my terminal window here. I need to remember to export my AWS profile, because if I don't do this, AWS commands are not going to work. Okay, so export this profile. It was my username, or it was ML School. I don't remember. What was it? I think it was ML School. That was the name of the profile, right? Yeah, that was the name of the profile. All right, so I exported that. So let's run this command, which is gonna print out, not this one here. This command is gonna print out the IP address of the server. And you can also get that information from the AWS console, obviously. But I don't want to do that. It's easier to get it from here. So if I open, let's just open a new page here. And now we can go to HTTP .ip port 5000, and that should open up MLflow remotely. This is pointing to our server now, which is awesome. So we now need to modify the MLflow tracking URI. So if we remember correctly, let me go here. I'm going to copy this. If we do environment grep, just print the MLflow tracking URI. Remember that we set that to this value here, which is the local host. That is the MLflow server that we have running here locally. Let me stop that server. I don't think we are going to use it anymore, so I'm just going to even kill that. So this command that I have here will modify that MLflow tracking URI. And let me see. Yes. And it's going to set it in the current environment. So I'm going to do that. That's a long command. Boom. All right. So if we rerun the environment grep, now MLflow tracking URI is pointing to the remote server. That is exactly what we wanted. Now we can, actually, let me close that. This looks better here. Now, before I even finish this, I'm going to rerun the training pipeline, because if I run the training pipeline now, all of the tracking should be done by the remote server, okay? So as a reminder, you can copy the command, but you can just run the training pipeline by just looking for it, training. You're going to specify the environment, which is going to be PyPy, and then you're going to say run. And now this pipeline should send all of the tracking and the model and all of that to the server. So it already started. So if I go here and I refresh this page, there you go. You get here this run name that it already started tracking. So this is working. This is awesome. It took a little bit longer than I wanted. I don't know. I've been recording now for 34 minutes. But if you get to this point, you have everything that you need to start deploying in AWS. I think you're missing one big step that we're going to see later on, but at least the big portions of this is already done. You have your AWS account configured. Now you have MLflow running in the cloud. You change your environment variables. You have everything, most of what you need is ready to go. All right, so I'm gonna stop recording now. And well, let me let this finish just to make sure it reports everything before I declare a victory. Okay, let's see, almost done. Almost done, but not done yet. Okay, created version 1 of Model Penguin. So if I refresh MLflow, the MLflow remotely now we have Penguins version 1. So that is working fine. By the way, you can point anything that we did before now works. It's nothing. You don't have to change anything because just by changing that MLflow tracking URI variable, you have access to everything that we did before. It's just pointing to the remote server instead of the local server. So even if I go here and I look for the deployment, let's just go all the way up. It says deploying the model. Remember that we run this command. Notice how this command is relying on the MLflow tracking URI variable in order to run the model locally. So if I copy, this doesn't work. I keep doing the same thing and it doesn't work. If I do this, see, it's not working. I have to copy and paste. If I run this, this is gonna download the assets from the remote server, and it's going to, well, we're using port 8080. So of course this is not gonna work because we need to kill the previous server. Actually, let me rerun it here. Now that we are here, we can rerun it. I'm gonna type that and I'm gonna click enter. What happened? Not a proper models URI, models/penguin. Oh, okay. I know what's happening here. Let's see what the environment variables are. The problem is that in this particular, I tried to run the command in a different terminal window where I don't have the proper environment variable set. So I either set that environment variable here. I'm just going to go to the previous one. This is fine. And rerun it here. This should work now. Anyway, whenever you get one of those errors, just make sure the environment variables are properly set across all of the bash, all of the terminal windows that you have. So as you can see here, this is working. We have the Keras backend model working. It's working here locally on my computer, but it's getting the model from the cloud, which is awesome. All right, so in the next video, instead of deploying the model here locally, I'm going to show you how to deploy that model to an endpoint in SageMaker. That would be it. All right, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.